So as we can see, I'm using Microsoft Teams. The Teams we access through these links. And Teams, of course, have the ability to have files, as you can see. So there's our general file there. Now the files are just for viewing. So Teams, you've got to understand, are for being able to have an overview of stuff. You can also create what's called a channel in a team. So a channel is the ability to have a more focused understanding of a particular aspect of our team. So by adding a channel, I can have my own files specifically there. Now we don't have to use channels, but this idea of having channels has been explored by the McBride Humanities team. They've got their own channels here where they've decided to break their VCE into specific areas. And you can see that they're doing their file management this way. For my technology team, because we have so many disparate areas, you can see I was showing them how to communicate at my last one, which is typical. We go to our files, and if I open in SharePoint, I will see the files, and you will see that I've tried to structure my my folders in a specific way. So if we go to documents, so this general discussion is from the team. If I go to the actual document, I've created folders called curriculum documents, and I've split them up for Dudley and McBride. I've got some administration, which is probably going to go back into the broad documents one. I've got the mapping documents, and in Dudley, what I'm doing now, as my participants are bringing in curriculum, I'm identifying documents and sections for them. Of course, it's really important that we understand that our file management is based on SharePoint. Now we can get that by going to OneDrive. So if I click on OneDrive, I've got it up here. You can see the teams I belong to, the folders for those teams are actually here to be seen. And you can see that I've created a thing called KLA directories. But note this, I created a channel for technology. And we can decide as a curriculum committee, do we want to use channels? Do we want to have a specific area, or do we want to collaborate together? And really it's human decisions. It's a human decision. You can see in our general section here, we have nothing. In our cloud section, that's where I'm putting the various things, and I'll put this video here. And we have in our documents, in our KLA directories, I'm taking what people did in the Google Drive and I'll just put that across so we can have a discussion about those. So when we create a channel, it creates a file section for us in SharePoint through our teams. So the SharePoint is where our files are managed. The teams give us an overview. And you can see that in our general conversation, I was explaining to our technology KLA that we can talk about discussions. Also, I put in this tab. You can add all sorts of tabs to your team. This is a planning tab that I've added, and it allows me to do a to-do list, which I intend to do with my KLA team. You only have to click the plus button in your team management, and you can add all sorts of tabs. There is an enormous range, and you can imagine that if you have a team that's a class, there's all sorts of things here that you might want to add, like YouTube, or Quizlet, or something that involves some task management, or a wiki, or a Word document that is automatically accessible by the team. So I'd like you to think of this as a sort of like a portal where all sorts of things can occur. How you structure your team, as I said, you may wish to do it under the humanities, which I've joined, and in the KLA, if we go back to my OneDrive, we look at the McBride Humanities, you will see that in their documents they have their various teams that have been set up. The channels is where the documents appear. So the document libraries have been created because of the channels. So these are the sorts of things. You can see that VCE accounting. When I go back into the team and I go to VCE accounting, and you'll see that those files are still there. So this idea of having a channel, particularly for subjects where you have very distinguished areas, they're quite easy to delineate, and there's a whole group of people who use them. I'm imagining like in science or in English. The team channels is a good way of focusing the conversation, because each one of those channels has the same sort of portal with a conversation, with notes, and you can add tabs to that as well. So you might want to add a planner for Year 10 English, for example. I hope that's helpful.